Welcome to a very special episode of Video Game Reviews. Today we're going to be talking about Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon on the Nintendo Switch. And holy crap, I literally cannot say enough good things about this game. This is literally my favorite game that I have played in years. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Okay, and I don't really hand those out lightly. It's very rare that a new game will come along. Not that this is really even new anymore. It's a few years old, but it's very rare that a game will come along and sort of join that top echelon of mine of my favorite games of all time. And I'll tell you what really does it for me. To me personally, the first Castlevania is one of the absolute most perfect games of all time. For me personally, it's got like the perfect difficulty level. It controls, to me, exactly the way that it should. You know, it's a little bit slower and kind of methodical in a way. And it sort of almost feels like this is going to be weird, and I don't want this to throw you off, but it's almost like a rhythm game. Not that it's a rhythm game at all, but just in the sense that the game has sort of a rhythm to it. When you jump, when you attack, all of these things just come together in a way that works like magic for me. So you will see a lot of comparisons between this game and Castlevania 3. And the reason for that, if you're not already aware, is because you do, like in Castlevania 3, there are multiple characters that you can get on your team, and once you get them, you can switch between them on the fly. However, I tend to compare this more to Castlevania 1, because again, Castlevania 1 has, to me, like the perfect difficulty balance. And even though this game is actually, I would say, quite a bit easier than Castlevania 1, but the reason that I don't like the Castlevania 3 comparison is because Castlevania 3, while decent, always felt really cheap to me and not very well balanced and not really particularly good compared to the first game and some of the other games in that series. So when I say that I like this game as much as I like Castlevania 1, that's literally the highest praise that I could give a video game. Some of you are going to think that I'm going a little off the rails or I'm going a little over the top with my praise, but I mean, that is my opinion. My opinion, this to me is everything that I want a video game to be. I love the graphics. To me, it looks like it legitimately could run on an NES. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. I'm not really a tech guy in that regard. So let's get on with talking about this game. Oh, the one thing that I will say that Castlevania 1 has over this game and basically every game is the soundtrack. The Castlevania 1 soundtrack is like perfect chiptune music. The chiptune music here is, I would still consider it mostly really good, but it's not quite to that Castlevania 1 level for me. Okay, so now let's get in and let's talk about the game. There's a few things in the videos in the background that you're going to see that I do want to point out. The first thing is that so in Castlevania 3, when you would switch between characters, there was this almost sort of loading effect from one character to the next. And in this game, when you switch between characters, as you'll see, it's basically instantaneous. So it really doesn't slow things down, and it doesn't take you out of the game or out of the experience, which is really critical, I think. So another thing that you're going to see in this video, if you see, okay, so boss fights, you would have seen a couple so far, I think. And you might be thinking, if you're watching the video, like, wow, those are really short and easy. And that's, they're not as short and easy as I'm making them look. It's just the way that I captured my footage. I wound up catching, in most cases, I wound up catching the very beginning of the boss fight and the very end of the boss fight. And during the middle of the boss fight, I was too preoccupied, playing the game and trying not to get killed to really do any, to press the record button, basically. So just know that. And then also, I think there's one or two instances here where there's something that looks kind of glitchy, and again, that's actually just a seam between two video segments. That's not the game itself glitching out. The game runs wonderfully. The bosses, as you'll see with some of these, are pretty big and spectacular. Other ones not as much, but it's just a beautiful experience regardless. All four of your characters that you wind up getting are really well balanced. They have abilities that really complement one another. There is one character, Alfred, who some people might argue is on the borderline of being overpowered, and there will be some segments in these videos where it looks like, wow, that looks really easy, that looks, that character looks really overpowered, etc. But that's not like, you have to bear in mind that it's all about knowing when to switch, when to use which character, and also there's the matter of keeping that character alive. Each character has their own health bar, or if a character falls into a bottomless pit, then they're no longer available until either all of your characters die and you lose a life, or until you get to the next level. So another thing that I will say about this game is that it is a good challenge. I feel like the balance on the challenge is beautiful, but I wouldn't say that it's Nintendo hard. Not really. You may have some differing opinions out there, and I am a pretty seasoned Castlevania player, so that may have something to do with it, but I don't think that this game is really that hard. I've actually beaten this game. I've gotten every ending. I've beaten the game on every difficulty level. Every way that you possibly could go about finishing this game, I've done it. And if some of my gameplay looks a little clunky, it's because I haven't played it in months, like over 6 months I haven't played this game. And I just picked it up a couple of nights ago to record the footage, and I was like, well, I'll just grab some quick footage, and I wound up playing through the entire game, which was totally not even my intention at all. Now, this game is actually... So there's another Bloodstained game called Ritual of the Night, and that's considered, like, quote-unquote, the main game, and that's got more modern graphics, and it plays like a Metroidvania instead of this, which plays like just a pure old school Castlevania. And so Ritual of the Night, I feel like, is good. It's pretty good, to be honest with you. I'm a little burned out on Metroidvania games. It was just, man, this game just came along at exactly the right time, and it was so refreshing to just get back to basics and play a really, really well done old school game. Speaking of which, the team that did this, if I'm not mistaken, was also responsible for the Mega Man revival with Mega Man 9 and 10. Another feature that's definitely worth mentioning, so not only are there different difficulty levels, you've got your normal, your hard, and your nightmare, or whatever they call them, but in addition to that, there's a separate selection called Mode Select, or something like that, and so the options are Casual and Veteran. And so the differences there, really like the biggest difference there, is the elimination. In casual mode, there is no knockback when you take damage. And of course, if you're an old school Castlevania player, then you know that a lot of your deaths come from being knocked back by an enemy hit into a bottomless pit. while I can and have multiple times beaten the game on veteran difficulty, I keep the knockback, turned on, or, in the game, included in the game, just to be whatever, just to prove to myself that I'm old school enough to be able to do that. However, I wouldn't blame anybody for playing on casual mode, and I really don't feel like it ruins the experience at all. In fact, knockback is garbage. Look, it was garbage. It wasn't even cool back in the day. Back in the NES days, it felt crappy back then. There were a few games like Ninja Gaiden and Castlevania that were still great games despite that fact. But I really don't think that it adds anything, and I think that playing through this game with the knockback turned off is still a totally legitimate way to play through and enjoy this great game. So if that's a selling point for you, by all means. I actually recorded so much more footage for this game than I'm gonna wind up using. I recorded like almost my entire playthrough 30 seconds at a time. I think I've got like more than 45 minutes of game footage that I captured in one sitting. I mean, I'm almost inclined just to let it play because I think this game is just that's one thing that I can't convey to you guys. Like, you can watch the game and say, okay, look, I get it, but it just feels so good to control. Like, I feel like you gotta, if you're a Castlevania fan and you have not played this game, or if you're really an old school game fan at all, and you haven't played this game, it's $10 for what is, in my opinion, the best game that I've played on my Switch, period. And I don't even have to think about that statement. It's just absolutely true. Like, there's not even, in my mind, and for my taste in games, there's not even really a close contender for that title for me. So if you're a fan of old school, or you're a fan of Castlevania, and somehow you haven't heard of this, or you haven't played it yet, it's $10, 100%. Like, as far as I'm concerned, totally make this your next purchase. It's amazing. And I totally get different strokes for different folks. So if you're not an old school game fan, or if you don't like old school Castlevania for some reason, then maybe this isn't your game. And that's okay. But I've been excited to do a video for this game since before I even had a channel, or before I even started recording games on my Switch at all. Okay, so you've got your 4 characters. You've got Zangetsu, and he's kind of your main character. That's who you start with, and he's got a sword for a weapon instead of a whip. And this is so important. So if you've seen anything about this game anywhere, then you know what's up. But basically, at the end of the first 3 levels, after you beat each one of the first 3 levels, you unlock another character. Like, you free them from the boss of that level, basically. And once you do that, you have 3 choices. You can either recruit that person, and then they join your team, and you can switch between them, and that makes the game a lot easier. And it allows you to take different paths through levels, and it allows you to reach different items, and also just gives you another character with a separate health bar, so it just makes the game easier. However, you don't have to recruit them. You can also walk right by them, and then you gain nothing. So that's the hardest way to play through the game, is to not recruit anybody, right? But then there's a third option, which is you can actually, after you rescue the character from the level boss, you can choose to kill the character, and if you do that, you gain a power. So if you choose to go that route and kill all of the secondary characters, then you're still playing through the entire game with just Zangetsu, but you wind up being a powered up version of Zangetsu, basically. You've got some other abilities and stuff, and it kind of helps you out. It's still sort of a tough way to play through the game, but it makes it a little bit easier and also like a little bit interesting. And and then of course another big difference between this and Castlevania, in Castlevania 3, you could only have one secondary character, like, at a time. And in this one, you can actually have all four, you can have 4 characters instead of 2. So that makes a huge difference. Alright, well look, man, like I said, I can't possibly say enough good things about this game. I feel like I've been rambling for the last 15 minutes, and I don't even care. Go out and get this game, for real. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked the episode. As they say, like and subscribe and hit the little bell notification thingy. That would help me out. It's cool when I get viewers. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of nice. You know, I take the time to put these videos together. It's nice to know that somebody's watching them. Alright, well, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.